Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. I never imagined a man I trusted so much could completely destroy my life in a single night. My name is Ethan, I'm 38, and I've always believed that loyalty and hard work pay off. I ran my own small accounting firm for years, made sure every client was happy, never cut corners, and lived by the principle that respect is earned, not demanded. I thought I had everything under control. My career, my marriage, my life. But control, I learned too late, is just an illusion. Her name was Claire. We met in college, both of us young, ambitious, and slightly naive. She had this laugh that could light up any room, a warmth that made people gravitate toward her, and a kindness that seemed endless. I remember the day I proposed. It wasn't flashy, just a quiet evening in our small apartment, the city lights reflecting off the windows. She said yes with tears in her eyes, and for years I believed we were unstoppable. We had routines, inside jokes, shared dreams. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Work was my second home. I'd put in 12, sometimes 14-hour days, making sure the numbers balanced. Clients stayed happy, and the company grew steadily. My boss, Richard, was older, charismatic, and always wore that carefully polished confidence like armor. I respected him, sometimes even admired him. Little did I know, he'd been harboring resentment under the surface, envy and greed carefully hidden behind those rehearsed smiles. And worse, he had been watching me, not my work, but my life, my happiness, my wife. It started subtly at first. Claire would mention Richard's charm in passing, laugh a little too long at a story he told, or come home from dinner with a strange sparkle in her eyes. I brushed it off, telling myself I was being paranoid. After all, I trusted her. I trusted us. But then came the night that changed everything. The night Richard crossed every line imaginable. I had stayed late at the office, reviewing client reports, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Claire. "I'm sorry, Ethan, I can't explain it now. Just come home." My chest tightened instantly. I left the office without a word, barely stopping at the traffic lights. When I got to our home, the front door was slightly ajar. The hallway smelled faintly of expensive cologne. Not mine, not hers. I called out her name, and the living room was empty except for him, Richard, my boss, standing in our kitchen, holding a bottle of wine, looking far too comfortable. And Claire, sitting across from him, eyes downcast, cheeks flushed. It hit me like a punch. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. I don't remember the drive home after that, only the mixture of rage and disbelief that consumed me. Years of trust shattered in seconds. My mind raced, retracing every dinner, every meeting, every seemingly innocent gesture. I had been blind, trusting, naive. But in that moment, something shifted inside me. I realized that I had two choices: crumble under the weight of betrayal or reclaim every ounce of control I still had. The following days were a blur of quiet observation and careful calculation. I didn't confront them immediately. I didn't scream or throw things. Instead, I watched, listening, gathering. Richard, oblivious to the storm brewing behind my calm facade, continued with business as usual. Claire, torn between guilt and desire, tried to maintain a veneer of normalcy. But I had already begun weaving my response, a strategy not of chaos but precision. I knew I couldn't take back what was lost, but I could take everything else. His sense of superiority, his wealth, his pride. I would strip him of it piece by piece. I started small, auditing the accounts he oversaw, the projects he claimed credit for. Every discrepancy, every inflated invoice, every overlooked error became ammunition. He had underestimated me, believing loyalty meant weakness. Meanwhile, I rebuilt the walls around my own life, emotionally and financially. Friends and colleagues noticed the change, a subtle confidence, almost imperceptible, but it radiated from me like an aura. I was no longer the man who tolerated injustice quietly. I was a man preparing for retribution, and then came the moment I had been waiting for. Richard trusted in routine and predictability. I used that against him. A key client meeting, something he would never skip, never suspecting that the foundation of his empire was crumbling silently behind his back. As he presented, I quietly diverted the contracts, secured critical data, and shifted resources without anyone noticing. The groundwork was done. He would soon learn that control is never given freely, and those who underestimate loyalty, strategy, and intelligence often pay the highest price. At home, Claire started noticing the distance, the cold clarity in my eyes. She reached out, trying to reconnect, attempting to rationalize what had happened, but my silence spoke louder than any words. I was done trying to convince her of anything. Love alone was never enough. Respect mattered, and she had surrendered that the moment she allowed him into our life. Every attempt to manipulate, every plea, every whispered apology was met with calm, calculated detachment. The man she once knew, the husband who had built everything around her happiness, had transformed. Betrayal had reshaped him into someone she no longer recognized. And so the night my boss stole my wife became the night I discovered something far more valuable than love. Power, clarity, and the ability to reclaim what truly belonged to me. I didn't act out of rage, and I didn't seek vengeance in the way most would expect. Every action was deliberate, measured, a reflection of years spent understanding loyalty, human weakness, and the nature of betrayal. And as I watched Richard scramble, trying to patch the cracks he hadn't seen coming, I felt an odd sense of satisfaction, not from cruelty, but from justice. It was mine, methodical, inevitable. The days that followed were a lesson in patience and observation. Richard's arrogance was his weakness, and I watched it crumble silently. I made sure every mistake, every oversight, every shortcut he had taken over the years was exposed at the exact moment it would hit him hardest. Colleagues whispered in private, noticing discrepancies and anomalies that pointed directly back to him. He tried to maintain composure, but the cracks were unmistakable. Every confident step he took, every smug grin, became a subtle reminder of the empire he thought was secure, and was anything but. Meanwhile, Claire reached a point where she realized I was no longer the man who would bend for her whims. I had stopped arguing, stopped pleading, stopped begging for explanations. My calmness, my distance, and the subtle power I projected unnerved her more than anything else could. She tried to reason, to justify, even to manipulate, but each attempt bounced off an invisible wall. Her actions had consequences, and she was seeing them unfold without me uttering a single word of reproach. In that silence, the lesson sank in. The man she thought she could control now controlled the narrative entirely. And then the final move, the moment I had envisioned since that night of betrayal, arrived. Richard had an expensive property portfolio he managed personally. Investments, rental agreements, and contracts were all under his oversight. I had spent weeks analyzing, planning, and waiting. One misstep, one overlooked clause, one weak link in the chain, and the dominoes would fall. It wasn't about money alone. It was about demonstrating that no one who betrays trust walks away unscathed. I acted quietly. I corrected critical errors in the contracts he had ignored, reallocated resources, and ensured that key clients were directed to my firm. By the time Richard realized what had happened, the damage was irreversible. Deals he had taken credit for were legally reassigned. Finances shifted under terms he could no longer control, and his reputation, carefully cultivated over decades, began to erode before the eyes of his peers. Panic replaced confidence, and arrogance dissolved into helpless frustration. He finally understood what I had known all along. Betrayal is a gift to the prepared, not a tragedy for the unready. As for Claire, she had nowhere to hide from the reality of her choices. She realized too late that her attempts to maintain a facade of love and affection for him came at the cost of everything she had shared with me. I didn't humiliate her or confront her with anger. Instead, I allowed the truth to manifest naturally. Every whispered excuse, every sigh of regret, every glance of hesitation only underscored what she had lost. Love and loyalty cannot be demanded. They are given freely, and when surrendered for convenience or desire, there is nothing left to reclaim. When it was finally over, I stood alone in the apartment that had once felt invaded, cold, and hollow. The silence was different now, not crushing, not filled with betrayal, but sharp, clear, and almost cleansing. I looked around at what remained of my life and realized that control, dignity, and self-respect had been restored. Everything that had been taken in the heat of impulsive passion, deceit, and arrogance had been returned to me, not by force, not by rage, but by patience, strategy, and clarity. The final confrontation, though quiet, was undeniable. Richard reached out, attempting apologies, trying to regain footing he had lost through his own mistakes. I listened politely without emotion. Every word he spoke was a testament to his failure, not my success. Claire attempted to explain herself, to soften the edges of her betrayal, but words alone could not undo years of choices made in secret, in lust, and in disregard for the life we had built together. I offered nothing. My silence, deliberate and unwavering, spoke louder than any confrontation could. It wasn't revenge in the way most people expect. There were no dramatic confrontations, no shouting matches, no public humiliation. Everything unfolded with precision, inevitability, and a calm satisfaction that only comes from knowing the truth of one's own strength. Betrayal had been met with clarity, injustice met with strategy, and the violation of trust met with the quiet power of preparation and patience. I reclaimed what was mine: dignity, respect, control, while leaving those who had wronged me to face the consequences of their choices. And as I finally allowed myself to breathe, I understood a truth I had never fully appreciated before. Life doesn't demand dramatic closure, nor does it require spectacle. The real victory is in the quiet restoration of oneself, in the reclamation of power, in the awareness that betrayal can never steal what integrity and preparation have built. The night my boss stole my wife could have destroyed me entirely, but instead, it became the night I discovered who I truly was. And that discovery, more than anything, was worth everything. I moved forward, not in anger, not in hatred, but in calm assurance. My life was mine again, reshaped and fortified by the experiences that had once threatened to break me. Claire's choices, Richard's arrogance, and their momentary victories had all taught me the same lesson. Respect, loyalty, and intelligence are not things to be taken for granted. They are the foundation upon which life is built, and when betrayed, they must be reclaimed not with impulsive rage, but with calculated precision and unwavering self-belief. And in that clarity I finally slept peacefully again. Not with her, not with bitterness, but with the knowledge that I had taken everything worth taking. Not for spite, but because it was mine to reclaim. The night my boss stole my wife ended up giving me something far greater than I had ever imagined: control, dignity, and the undeniable power of a man who refused to be defeated.